Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told out of Voice of Radio, so today we need to take a look at the most expensive cards from Incandescent Arcana. Now, bearing in mind, this is going to be somewhere in the region of a third-ish of Silver Tempest. Silver Tempest is going to be made up of Incandescent Arcana and Paradigm Trigger, which as it stands at the moment has not been officially revealed, but we've seen plenty of listings, etc., not to mention the information we've seen from Silver Tempest itself, which basically tells us what this set is. It's a Lugia set. Come on. You can literally see the booster pack on the screen right now. The point is, these cards are going to be coming in Silver Tempest, and some of them are worth getting very, very excited about. And I'm going to be honest with you, ladies and gentlemen, we might as well start right at the beginning with Full Art Serena. I told you when I showed you all the super rares or secret rares from this set that I expected Serena to be number one. And I even actually showed you a video the other day showing you how silly Serena had actually gotten. And when I showed you the other day, I told you that things were in flux and I wasn't ready to show you exactly yet. But I showed you that Serena was about 42,800 yen. Well, the good news is that as predicted, the price has started to stabilize a little bit. Incidentally, that's why we were happy to talk about Serena the other day, but I wasn't willing to bring you my most expensive cards from the set. You need to give it a weekend for everything to settle down a little bit. And at the moment, over on Card Rush, which is a good site to look at for this, we've got, non-mint ones that are cheaper, and there are, a couple on sale, but your general listing there, the one which is fully in stock, etc., is going up for 35,000 yen. That's a lot of money, ladies and gentlemen. So, don't get me wrong, right? This is still less than the price I showed you the other day, and it's less than the 50,000 yen that the lovely Brace Gaming tweeted about very, very shortly after the release of the set. We're still talking about a crazy expensive card, but it has at least come down to a slightly more sensible level. Still crazy expensive, and I'm not going to pretend for a second that it isn't, but it's at least come down a little bit. If anybody's wondering, you're talking just shy of $250, and you're talking about £215, so it's still a very, very, very expensive card. It's starting to level out a little bit. It's been a couple of days, but this is still a crazy expensive card. The other one we've got from the past couple of sets, the other card we've got, which can, challenge this, if that's the right way to put it, in terms of value, is the alternate art Giratina. And as it stands at the moment, if you want to be picking up your alternate art Giratina, again, using the same site to keep it even, you're talking about 30,800. So, cheaper. Don't get me wrong, Giratina, absolutely cheaper, but at least, this is roughly in line. This is the kind of thing we're talking about. So yeah, this is a ridiculously expensive card, and it's one that we need to keep a very close eye on, because this is not going to be cheap. Now, the good news is, these secret rare supporters, these full art supporters, do end up being more expensive in Japan than they are over here. So if we go back a few sets, we could look at something like Irida as a nice example. That is another card which debuted very high. It's not quite on the same level of Serena, but it's not a million miles away. And Irida, you're generally talking somewhere in the region of about 30,000 yen. That's what we're generally looking at as a value for that one. And 30,000 yen, you're talking somewhere in the ballpark of around about $210 or around about £185, which is clearly very, very expensive, right? But Irida's a card which is out in English. And it's like a $30 card. Like using TCG Player as a nice little baseline here, because it's always a good one to look at. The English version of Irida is like a $30 card. So although the Japanese full art Serena is crazy expensive, and incidentally, right, it's going down in value, but it's not going to go down that much, all right? It's probably going to go down to maybe 30,000 yen, probably a bit more than that, honestly, because it's a better card than Irida. Do please remember that the English version will be a lot cheaper, but that won't do anything to the Japanese version of the card. The Japanese version of the card is still going to be crazy expensive. All right, so that's the number one by a very wide margin. What's number two? Furisode Girl. Furisode Girl is the number two card, quite clearly, and it's coming in at 7,680 yen. Which, if you're paying attention, you may realize, it's like not even close. Like, not even remotely close. It's miles away. Absolutely miles away. And we're talking 7,680 yen here, which incidentally is still more than a booster box cost. Booster box like 5,200. But you're talking here around about $55 or around about £47.50. In fact, exactly £47.50 at the current exchange rate. This is so much cheaper than Serena, but that's where we are. This is the number two card. Now, the number three card is actually sitting there pretty gosh darn close as well. It's just a hair below, decent way, I suppose. 6,480 yen. We've got the special art version, the character super rare, of Superior V, which incidentally, artwork-wise, come on, ladies and gentlemen. Come on, that's amazing. You're talking about $45 for this one, or around about, actually pretty much exactly £40. So, still decent amount of money, still more than you'd pay for a booster box, but we're not talking hugely expensive at this stage. These are, and incidentally, right, these free cards are the only ones that will set you back more than a booster box. So if you want to buy singles of this set, singles are a fairly decent idea, because like I say, I've shown you free cards that cost more than a booster box. Everything now is going to be less than a booster box to buy. And honestly, there really isn't very much. There are maybe 3 other cards which are worth talking about as particularly expensive. So the gold version of Energy Switch comes in at 5,000 yen. Fine, if you want to be pedantic, 4,980 yen. But come on, it's pretty much the same. Just a tad below a booster box. You're paying $35 or £30 for this. And it's Energy Switch, right? So, it's not a female supporter, which, as we've seen, end up being the most expensive cards. It's not a beautiful character super rare, or what might end up being quite a playable card. But what we do have here, it's Energy Switch. An Energy Switch is one of those cards that's always legal, and that's the other thing about a thing like Energy Switch. The price of this card is never really going to go down like that, because it's not ever gonna be out, even if it goes out of rotation, it's gonna be back. We all know it's gonna be back fairly quickly, so it ends up settling at a pretty expensive card, but it was kind of always gonna be the deal. The other one we've got here is V-Guard Energy, which comes in at 3,180 yen, which is a decent amount. You're talking here around about $23 or around about £20. We're going to maybe stop going to the nearest 5 here because the values are starting to drop quite quickly. And then I suppose there's one more which does need to be talked about, and that is the Gold Superior, which comes in at 3,000 yen or 2,980 because of the whole psychological pricing thing. It's a well-known business thing, essentially. By pricing it at 2,980, people think under 3,000, and it looks cheaper than it actually is, even though 20 yen is approximately nothing. So here you're talking about $21 or about £18. So again, it's not the cheapest card ever, but if you're absolutely desperate for this card, there's no point trying to pull it with a pull rate as low as it is for a Gold V Star. You're far better off just buying the single, because a single really is not terribly expensive. Everything else in the set is honestly nice and cheap. It's really not very expensive at all. But we do need to talk just for a second about the rainbow rares. Because you may have noticed I've talked about a couple of full arts at the moment, not talked about any rainbow rares. In fact, there are a couple of cards I've not yet talked about that maybe I should have. So let's mop them up before we leave. Now, Rainbow Rare Serena is actually up there for 3,780 yen, but it's also currently sold out. Now, general rule is, and this works on this side, but it also works in like every site ever, if it's sold out, it means they put it up for a particular price, and all of them went. So it doesn't take a genius to figure out that we're going to see this relisted for a higher price. So at the moment, you're talking 3,780 yen, which means we're rocking around about $27 or around about £23. But please do bear in mind, this is likely to be relisted higher. Of course, 3,780 yen is very, very different to the 34,800 yen we saw for the full art. They are not even close. Speaking of not even close, the Rainbow Rare of Furisode Girl, that is in stock, but is currently sitting there at 1,780 yen, which is, compared to all the other... I mean, it's basically half of Serena, but, even compared to the full art, it's like a quarter of the full art, somewhere in that region. So you're talking around about $13 or £11. It is really, if you like Furisode Girl and you're not particularly fussed about the full art, go pick up the Rainbow Rare. The Rainbow Rare at the moment, as it stands, is incredibly cheap. There's one other card of note that we do need to look at, of course, and that is the character super rare of Morile. That is the other character super rare in the set. And that one, again, is actually sold out at the moment. So it's currently listed for 3,000 yen, or 2,980 as we talked about. But again, it's currently shown as sold out. So expect that to be relisted for a slightly higher price. Still a fair bit below Superior, but it is worth bearing in mind that that one is sold out. So I didn't mention it earlier because I wanted to leave it till now so we could have the whole sold out conversation. Going to be more expensive, but that is worth noting. In terms of the character rares, remember there's 6 character rares in the set, and you get 3 per box. So the character rares were never going to end up being particularly expensive. I mean, the most expensive of them has actually settled up as Lizia with Altaria, and that's sitting there at 680 yen. But you'll notice, like a lot of the cards I've told you about so far, there's been like, 10 to 20 in stock because they're, very hard to get super rares. Here there are 119 of them in stock. And this is the number one at 680 yen. And 680 yen is like nothing. It's crazy, ridiculously cheap. You're talking around about $5 or £4. And it's a beautiful card, so yeah. The number 2, the only other character rare which has attracted any real kind of value here is the Braixen, which you'll notice also has Serena. Neither Braixen nor Altaria are particularly playable, but they're popular Pokemon with popular characters on, which is how they end up with the value. As far as I'm concerned, best art in the set, although I hate the Pokemon, is the Hyganasuke Jinx, and that is literally sitting there at 120 yen, with 300 of them in stock, which makes me very sad. But, I mean, at least it means if I don't put it in my boxes, I will be able to actually go and afford one, because 120 yen, right? You're literally talking 85 cents or 74p. Less than £1, less than $1. But come on, it's absolutely beautiful. If you're wondering about any of the other cards, hey Wassy, what about the Radiant Pokemon? What about the other Rainbow Rares, etc.? Any card I haven't talked about yet is 1,500 yen or less. So it's really, really cheap and not terribly worth mentioning. I suppose we could briefly mention that in terms of Radiant Pokemon, the number 1 is Jirachi at 680 yen. Which, interestingly enough, is exactly what we're seeing for Altaria. But even with Jirachi here, it's not a hugely great card. I like it, but I don't think it's going to set the world on fire. So even here, again, the Radiant are 1 per box. There's 3 in total in the set. So you should be pulling Jirachi every 3rd box. So even this here is just, it's a very cheap thing, all right? It's a very cheap thing. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That's the value. That's what you need to know. I think we've been nice and thorough, but as always, if you've got any questions, if there's anything you want to know, if there's anything you want to talk about, let me know in the comment section. Go nuts! Be nice! And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWasi. That's where we talk Pokemon and a bunch of other card games. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can join a Discord, chat some Pokemon, get weekly bonus podcasts where I answer all of your questions, and I give shout-outs to people like the lovely Taylor Ward, who is one of our newer Patreons. So shout out to Taylor Ward for supporting and being a lovely person. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourself till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.